It's campaign and conquest, let's play TTRPGs done right. War games and gaming, with Storm and Magenta tonight. We got a new system best you'll ever see. A paracosmic convergence of distance masterpiece. It's got the hit shots and plays every genre so well that you would think it was crafted in the depths of hell. It's campaigns and conquests, the best that there is. War games and gaming, with a system that wins. Whether you're a pro or a fighting kid, we've got something better, it's really the shit. Custom worlds, random tables galore, got all the backcomes and so much more. It's campaigns and conquests, the only true way. War games and gaming, all night and all day. It's campaigns and conquests, better subscribe to the show. War games and gaming, and now you know. It's campaigns and conquests, and we're feeling alright. War games and gaming, we're Storm and Magenta tonight.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Campaigns and Conquests. I'm Magenta, and I'll be your co-host this evening. We're joined tonight by Storm, as usual, your illustrious host. How you doing tonight, Storm?
Okay, how's it going, folks?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. I hope everyone out there listening is too. And if you are joining us for the first time, this is a channel we talk about wargaming, RPG games, all kinds of games, really. And we love to hear from our viewers and listeners. So if you have something to say during the show, please make a request. We'll bring you up so you can participate as well, because we like to make sure that this is a place where everyone who likes to play games feels welcome and gets a chance to talk and ask questions or participate as much as you like to. You can choose to come up with the camera on or camera off. It's your choice. All's welcome. So just let us know if you want to hear. And Storm, do you want to tell us all about what tonight's topic's going to be, please?
Well, I've been talking now that I can get a hold of some people with my Twitter about my system. I've been talking about what I've just called light squad leader. And that's really not the entirety of what I'm doing. But one of the things that I talked about is in attempt to try to get people to participate. I know I had some people that were squad leader players of the past. If you're not familiar with squad leader, it's a war game. It's got some RPG elements to it.
Is that what today's image is on the screen? These in the background today.
No, it's just
no, it's not. Okay, no. Sorry.
But I just brought that up as one of the ways that you could play the system I'm come up with. Squad leader is one of those games, one of the ones that always gets that's an unplayable monster and it's too much and that kind of deal from people. But because I do play a lot of war games and have history buffs and stuff, or at least did following me, the whole World War II infantry, which is what squad leader is about, type thing, came up as a way to show you that this can be an easy way to do it. I had somebody that was a game designer involved with a lot of video games. In fact, one that Magenta, the Age of Empires.
Oh yeah, I know that game. I love that game.
Yeah, one of the designers of that is following me, and we talk from time to time. And his name's Sandy Peterson, and he's a game designer. Worked on Doom, the video game Doom, Age of Empires, and a couple of others, including Call of Cthulhu. I don't know if you're familiar with Call of Cthulhu.
I have heard of it. Now, familiar is maybe a bar that's a little too high for my knowledge base with it, but I have heard of I know enough to know what it is. I haven't actually ever played it, so I wouldn't say I have experience with it, but I know it focuses a lot on magic, dark magic in some cases, and some kind of monsters, and it's kind of gothic, kind of horror based RPG. Is that right, or have I got it?
I
Am
think
I
that's
missing
close enough. Yeah, it's
close enough?
yeah, and
Kind of like H.P. Lovecraft, right? Yeah.
like that.
So
Yep.
okay. Yeah.
Um, so and he's got his own game company now called Peterson Games.
Uh huh.
Anyway,
Is that Peterson with a T or with a D?
T.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, he came up and he made a statement on Twitter that don't design for what you think everybody else likes. Make what you want, and then let the people that are interested find you. If you try to make something for everybody, you'll end up making something for nobody.
Right. You just end up with game goulash then.
Right. So in that sense, what I did was I wanted to be able, I love my old Avalon Hill and my old SPI stuff, but I'm tired of, the people that played that with me are not around anymore. Sometimes in the most literal sense of it, because those things are old. But I'm hoping I can find people that would be interested in the premise of those, the themes of those games, and go, well, it sounds like it'd be fun to play that, but I saw that rule book and all that jazz. So, and with squad
So
leader,
what are you saying here, that we all need to go back and play World War II games in preparation for World War III? Is that what's going on? I'm just kidding.
it's
You
about,
never
yeah,
know. It's about time, right? It happens once every 50 years or whatever. Or 75. I don't know.
I don't know, no, and it did just people who are history buffs, same thing with Civil War, any of those types of things. Anyway, I just like the idea of mixing RPGs with war games, and I like the idea of maybe playing some of those old games, or at least the themes of them. And this would do that, would allow people to do it in an easier manner. That's was part of what this whole system I came up with is. And the advanced squad leader is or the light squad leader is a way to play the advanced squad leader without having to use the rules that come with that game, because they're quite extensive in most people's minds.
So you just kind of streamline the rules, right? Not necessarily changing them, but streamlining. Like,
no, they're not the same. They're not. No,
No?
they're not the same. No, I changed them.
Okay, you changed them. All right.
Yeah. So, what I've got is a system. The other thing about this is I wouldn't want to go anywhere for anything. I wanted something more, whether I wanted to play a board war game, a miniatures war game, an RPG, or whatever, I didn't want to have to go any further than the system that I came up with. I wanted it to do everything.
Okay.
And people, I'm sure most people go, oh, that's crazy. There's no way. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, it absolutely is. It's just keeping the thing simple. It's kind of an irony, because I spent a lot of time on social media in the last few days, harping on it, all the complaints about complex, and the complaining about some remedial math and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that what I'm creating is, there's a lot of hyperbole in conversation around game stuff. And if you say, well, it's really not that big of a deal to use, say, modifiers to hit, some people translate that to, you want to play some mathematical simulation, and it's unplayable, and it's a burdensome monster, and all this stuff. And it's really over exaggeratory in the way people describe that sort of stuff.
Let me clarify with modifiers, because my understanding, again, I'm the newbie here. Anyone who's new to the show and doesn't know that, I'm kind of, I mean, I've been playing a little bit and picking some things up, but I'm still relatively a new player. So a lot of the games that probably most of our listeners are familiar with, I may not have played or just have a passing knowledge of. But just to be clear, when you're talking about modifiers, from what I've understood so far and learned along the way so far, that's basically where, like, if your guy is in, he's in a wooded area and he's kind of obscured, he would have a modifier to defense because he'd be harder to hit with a either a bow and arrow or a gun or whatever. He'd be harder to actually target
That's right. That's
because
what they are.
he's obscured. So
Mhm.
you would have a modifier that rather than it being, at 50 feet, your chances of hitting him are this, they're less than that if he's
Right.
undercover.
Right.
Well, that just seems logical to me. Now,
Right.
so
The
what is it
alternative
that people are trying to,
for people that complain about that too much, that one of
uh,
the things I think might be interesting to bring out is what would you do if you didn't have that? Would you prefer that every possible situation be iterated in terms so you have a chart that says everything? And of course, that seems even more ridiculous. So now you've got
then you got to look up the chart and make
oh
sure
yeah,
that
all this stuff. Yeah.
and then each unit on the chart might have, you'd have to like have charts that were cross referenced, because like it might make a difference if you're firing at the guy who's in the woods with a
Right.
gun
Right.
or with a sniper rifle
Right.
or with a
Right.
that sounds more complex to me
Yeah.
than to just
Sure.
have like, okay, this weapon has these particular stats and the modifiers that go with them.
Right.
Because say your guy was in cover, he's hiding in the woods, but you have a rifle, or I mean, the opponent, the guy who's firing at you, has a rifle with a sniper rifle with a scope, a really good scope, or maybe even an infrared scope. That might negate the fact that your guy's hiding. So, there, to be fair on both sides of it, especially if it's a head-to-head war game like me versus you, I want to get a modifier that says that my sniper rifle matters. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. I just
Yeah.
and I
Otherwise,
find
it's not really fair, right? If I,
right.
you know,
Or if
I
people
go to all the,
people that
why did I get the sniper to begin with if it doesn't make a difference?
yeah, if it's so overly simplified that everything's just there for well, snipers are cool. Okay, well, what's the difference? Well, there isn't one. That'd be too complicated. We don't want all those rules. Oh, okay. So why aren't we all snipers? Right. It just did. So at some point, oversimplifying the thing in my mind gets to the point where, you know,
Well, what are
I'm
they
not
trying to,
incapable of understanding certain concepts. And if you're handing me something that's so overly simplified, it's almost like saying, "Well, we don't want you to strain your brain. So here's something,
right?
I- right?
You rub
I
those
mean,
two brain cells together hard enough, they might catch on fire, right?
right, and I bring that up, and then some people go, "Well, you're just calling people stupid." I'm not calling people stupid. I'll use the phrase. I'll say this a lot, and people apparently have been, and I didn't realize. Maybe somebody was getting mad, but I was saying, we played that. We being me and my friends played this when we were 14, and it
Right.
wasn't complicated or difficult then. So what's changed now? Well, there wasn't 100 different video games to go run to in 1983. There was
I
the
have
Atari.
a theory. Okay, can I tell you my theory? This might be controversial. Please don't get mad at me, folks. I'm kind of an outsider to the gaming world. Although I'm kind of like, if you go back in time and you look at those pictures of like the kids in the 1920s who were starving and they're standing outside of the bakery window drooling. That's kind of how I've been when it comes to gaming, because I've always wanted to play games like this, but didn't really have the opportunity when it would have been really cool and I really wanted to do it. So that's where I'm coming from. But if I could just say, it seems to me that it's people who keep they're looking to get new customers, and what they're looking at is the thing that they think people would have the most trouble with, which is, oh, it's too hard, you have to add a bunch of numbers together, you have to think about this, you have to strategize. But to me, that's kind of like that's the part of the game that is like the challenge of playing a game, you know what I mean? It's the mental gymnastics that like make it worthwhile. Like if you were going to be an Olympic gymnastic person, you would train for it and you would push your body to its limits and you would want it to be like, you want to challenge yourself to be the best there ever is, if you're competitive like that. I think it's the same way with games. If you want to play a game, you want to be top form. You want to do something that's challenging, not tedious. And I think maybe that's where sometimes people can find a game like, where you have to do a whole lot of things can be that way. But challenging, yes. If that means I got to add a few numbers together, it's worth it to have a game that includes having to think about, okay, I've got this troop of people who are coming up, and what's the best way to advance on a position and be successful in what I'm trying to do. I want to replicate that. That's the whole purpose of the game, right? I don't want it to just be like, oh, well, I'm putting my guys here and let's see what the dice say. It's all about what the dice say. No, I want to know, did I have a good gambit, right? Did I strategize well and do something that was cool, not just relying on, I got lucky with that roll, although luck does play a part in all of it, but yeah.
It may sound fuddy-duddy, and maybe it is, but the fact of the matter is that it's different now. When you had to get up, I mean, this all sounds like, wow, old man yelling at cloud or whatever, but it's true. If you had to get up off the couch to change a channel, and now you don't, doing that would seem tedious all of a sudden. If your remote doesn't work, making that, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So
to be fair,
you have a different,
now it is tedious because if you lose the remote, can you even find the buttons on your TV?
Yeah, right. But the point is that there's a different tolerance for, doing something, and it's, but the problem that I get is that turning that into, it's a simulation that's unplayable and takes 1,000 hours to do and all that kind of hyperbole, that's tedious. That just drains me to hear that kind of stuff. It drives me nuts.
Well, to me, that sounds like somebody
okay, let's not
coming
play
along.
a game anymore. I don't want to play anymore if I hear that shit. I don't want to.
Well, you know what? To me, what I hear when I hear somebody say that is that somebody is competing with other games, and they're basically saying, "Come play my game because it's easier." Right. It's a way of saying, which to me, all right, I get it, but that's kind of like if I wanted to be a baseball player, would I be happy going backwards to Little League just because it's easier?
Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
Right?
I moved through
I don't
into
get
a deeper sophistication because I had started earlier and played longer.
Right.
And people look at that as go, well, you're just saying you're smarter than me. I know. Look, if you're starting to run and you start out 1 mile or whatever, but there's some person that's a little bit more in shape or whatever it is, or a little bit more experience, and they're doing 3 or 4 miles, they're not. I mean, maybe some people do look down their nose at something like that. Well, I'm not doing that. I'm just saying there's people that are in different levels. I've done all that stuff. I started with here's some basic things to get you off the ground and get you going. And the more I played it, okay, that's fun and all that. But is there more? Can we get a little bit more interesting? Can we increase the scope? Okay, I've learned how to, roll for shooting and how to move the tank and how to use the ruler and all that crap. How about some more? And I just rolling back to, well, here's your basics that I don't want to. Why would I want to do that? So it's not fun to me to do that. So everybody, and that's the thing, it's a subjective thing. Everybody has a different level of fun and all that. But the thing that, and I don't want to go any further because we're probably going to bore everybody right off the thing before they even hear about the game. But it just, when I hear phrases like laborious chore, hauling rocks in a wheelbarrow is a laborious chore. If you're not happy with the mechanic, okay. But some of this hyperbole just, I mean, it's too much, to hear.
Right.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, I think that different people have different things they're looking for in a game. And I think that there's always this counterbalance. To me, I imagine a game is kind of like a seesaw. Like on one side of the seesaw, you got luck. You can have a game that's all luck based, where there is no strategy, where it just doesn't matter what you decide to do, whether you're a good tactician or a good player, or you have an understanding of strategy, or you make wise decisions in the game. It doesn't really matter because it's all going to be determined by what you roll on the dice, which to me is just like playing a game of craps with some tokens on the side. That's really, it's all about the luck. And that can be exciting. I mean, luck is kind of, I think you have that moment before you roll the dice where you're like, oh, I hope I get, and everybody likes that. And then you see what you get and the ups and downs of it. It can be an exciting game in a lot of ways, but then there is also like the other side of the scale is like the chess where there is no chance. It's all about the strategy. Did you move the right piece in the right time? Did you lay the right traps? There is no luck in chess at all. Zero. So whether you win or lose, it was all you who did it, not any luck of the dice, right? It was you besting your opponent on a strictly intellectual level, and that kind of thing. So somewhere in the middle is kind of where most people are going to fall, where they want some luck, they want some strategy, and everybody has their different comfort level with that. So I think there's room out there for games where it is more about like, I want to know I made the right kind of decisions and I came, that I won it through the efforts of my own planning and my own capabilities, not just because the dice were good to me that day. You know what I mean? Personally, that's where I lean towards. And everybody has their own lean on that teeter-totter scale. You know what I mean?
Right. So,
was that an analogy that made sense? I hope I didn't say something silly.
no, that's fine.
Oh,
But anyway,
your enthusiasm is overwhelming, dear.
yeah.
Okay, I'll back off. Sorry.
No,
I get a bit excited and worked up about it because I do enjoy a good game, and given a choice, I'd rather play chess than a game that is all luck based. But that's just me. Although I have a weird way of playing chess, as you anyway.
So, righty. Should we go on with the?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I got a bit carried away, but go ahead.
I mean, we can. Okay.
Tell me about your game and what you made, what it's like. I'm curious.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry.
yeah, that's okay. Maybe well, I mean, like I say, it was just there's maybe we can just give it a little overview. It's meant to handle everything RPG wise and wargaming wise. So I just wanted to. I got tired of having to jump around all sorts of different rules and things like that. So the way that I did that is I made up just a couple of mechanics that can be used across genres. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you turn the screws on these mechanics?
Well, I just use some basic old school stuff is what I really did, and just in different ways. I think I'm having a
So
little bit of an audio problem.
I'm sorry, is it my audio that's causing a problem, or
Well, something is not quite right.
what's
Go
the
ahead.
matter?
I don't know. Just work with me. Go ahead. I'll see if I
Okay.
can.
Well, yeah, if anyone else is noticing any audio issues with my mic, please do let me know. Just so I can adjust it if it's needed. But so the game that you said this was one that you were doing, that was, what was the name of it again? I'm so sorry. Losing my mind. The squad leader? No, it wasn't that one. Was it?
That was just a term I was using to describe the thing, but a portion of it.
So it's a squad level game,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. World War II theme?
Well, no,
Okay.
it's meant to be everything, but that was just what I was talking about recently.
Okay. So you're applying your rule set to a squad leader type game.
No.
Okay. Sorry, I'm getting it wrong. So you tell me what I apologize. My guessing game isn't working out so good.
Well, I guess I'm not very clear on these streams. Maybe that's part of the problem. I don't know.
So I know about paracosmic convergence. We talked about that before, and we even played for World War II D-Day, we played a kind of sample skirmish game, which is still up on the website if I remember right. Right?
Yeah, that's on there. Oh, thanks. Hi, Michael. He's here listening. Yeah, yeah, that is up there, and that's part of it.
Well, I can attest that that was quite fun to play. I found that a good combination of the narrative plus also the game mechanics were pretty easy. Now, it was just a demo, so it was just me essentially playing against you were playing the role of the opposition in that case, which is a little bit different than I think it would normally be. Normally, I would have had an opponent and you would have been doing kind of the dungeon master refereeing kind of thing, or
that was what was happening.
okay. So it's kind of like if you were to take Dungeons and Dragons and just put it in a D-Day scenario setting, which it wasn't. Oh, go ahead.
You can role play anything. I mean,
Right.
when I say you can, I mean, some people might not want to, but you could role play anything. I always thought it'd be interesting just to do role playing systems just to see how to make it work. Like I a firehouse, or things like that. Although some people might not find that exciting enough. There was one. I don't think it went very far because I don't think a lot of people found it appealing. But somebody made like an EMT. Like you're an EMT. There was some other twist to it, like you were a robot or something like that. But anyway, you were basically an ambulance crew.
Okay.
And then right. And I guess that didn't appeal to enough people for it. That was about a year or two ago. Somebody came out with that.
I would feel intimidated by that, and I'll tell you why. Because, well, first of all, the pressure, life or death constantly, and medical knowledge, I don't really have that, so I would feel a bit like
I don't know any of the details of it as far as mechanics go.
I don't know if you needed that. Yeah, if you needed medical knowledge to play the game, I'm going to say people would be dying around me a lot.
Right.
That could be
But
disheartening.
it's not, it's one of those things where I look at it and go, well, people go, well, that wouldn't be any fun. Well, there again, fun is subjective. But the point is that it would be an exercise in maybe design or something like that, not necessarily something that you'd want to market to a mass audience for play, and just see how role playing systems work in different situations other than the usual game playing things, just as a kind of a experiment. But there have been war themed role playing games since they went out. One of the greatest experiences, I remember doing this. I went to a table, and I walked up to a table at Gen Con where they were playing a game called Behind Enemy Lines, which was a World War II RPG. And this was 82, maybe. Yeah, 83, something like that. And I said, what are you doing? Why I said hi first and all that, but I said, well, yeah, I wasn't rude about it, but I said, well, why this? There's a bunch of war games being played everywhere. And the first thing these folks said that I really liked and remember them saying is, it's not that we don't like D&D, but we're tired of D&D. At the time, it had kind of commanded, center
Was
stage.
the only game in town?
Yeah, to a lot of people it was, because it was,
Yeah.
I don't know, I think this was 82, so I think it was before the Red Box came out, but it seemed like it was everywhere and it was gaining a lot of popularity and stuff like that. There was actually a lot of different role-playing games out, and that was really the neat thing about the late 70s and early 80s. There was a lot of that stuff. But some people, if you didn't buy it off a shelf from some copyrighted company, they didn't want any part of it. There were some people that were like that. And FASA was a smaller company, but it was still like a TSR competitor, as opposed to the guy who made it in his basement and typed it out on a typewriter or whatever. Some of those were some of the greatest games, though. Anyway, so the first thing they said is, we didn't like, we've had enough of D&D. We've been playing it to death, and we wanted to see how role playing could work in different genres. And this was a World War II thing.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
and they played it, and a lot of people will say, I remember that game and it sucked. I see a lot of that. Or I see a lot of people saying, well, it wasn't well received. It got good reviews from some people. It got bad reviews from some people. So do some movies. But a lot of times,
if you think about it, any movie that came out while Titanic was like crushing the box office everywhere might have been the best movie out there, but it came out when Titanic was out, so people would have not even noticed it.
Well,
just, for example.
A review, yeah. And a review is typically an opinion. Somehow it's so,
Right.
But there was other reviews that made it sound really great. I like the idea of military role playing. Some people don't. But one of the things that I saw, even years before this happened, this altercation with these players, was I read a book by a guy named Joseph Munchauser III. And he was a wargamer that wrote some materials and books in the late 60s and early 70s. And one of the things that he talked about a lot was personifying your troops, breathing more life into the game, instead of just being a bunch of nameless pawns that look like toy soldiers that you just throw into battle and don't care about. Put some personality behind them, make them your guys, your boys, and let them have a little bit of training and even some names and stuff like that. And
Make them unique individuals.
Right. Like you would be. If you're a platoon sergeant, all your, a good one knows all your people and knows their names and their strengths or weaknesses and stuff like that. So making them more, individuality wasn't really something that the military was big on, but nonetheless, understanding that you have people and not just machines that you're throwing into battle made the game more interesting. It played out differently if it meant something to lose 30 guys out of your system,
Right.
because you won't have them for the next battle and stuff like that. And that was kind of the first step into merging some of modern role playing and wargaming.
It's fascinating to me because role playing, which is basically kids have been doing role playing for centuries, like probably from the very beginning, the very first time they heard the stories of how people came back from the big hunt for mammoths and what happened, and they would act it out on their own, and or even act out. I mean, it's just part of how kids learn and grow up to become adults, is playing out the roles they see the adults around them doing, right? So role playing is as old as humanity is. But what is interesting to me is how role playing merged with wargaming, because wargaming is basically about playing out the battle in your mind before you actually have to go to war, so that what the best strategy might be. And obviously you're simulating it to the extent of, and I know that's a buzzword you don't like, but I mean in the sense of like you're trying to replicate what may happen if suppose I sneak up on their right flank versus coming with a direct assault or whatever. You're playing out different scenarios and see what the possible outcomes might be. So that's a little bit more structured, right? But what's interesting is there was this period back in the late 70s, early 80s, where they kind of crossed over a little bit, where the imaginative side of things kind of melded into the war game side of things and personalized war games a little bit more, like what you're talking about. And the game that we played, that D&D sample game that we played, that's on the website, on the YouTube channel, if anybody wants to take a look at it. What was interesting to me about that was I actually got kind of emotional in playing that. I just had a small squad. Some things happened. I lost a guy, and I got a little choked up, because it meant something, because it was a role playing thing. I knew the guy's name, we tried to save him, and the whole 9 yards. So it was kind of an emotional experience, which I wasn't expecting, because usually war games are a little bit more about the tactics and the strategy, and a little less about personalities and characters and being, forming any kind of bond with the troops that you're going in with, in the way that we have always played them traditionally. So I think that's just fascinating to me how. And when it comes to like the role playing side of things, we went from where it's just like, I shoot at you, bang, and you're dead, to, okay, well, we've got to have something to determine what really happened when you did that, so I swing my sword at you. Okay, well, let's roll the dice and see if you hit me or not, instead of going, no, you didn't hit me. Yes, I did. No, you didn't, like kids do, where it's just all, playing and acting things out that way. But I just find that interesting, because it was just kind of like, it was like the creation of the Reese's peanut butter cup. Somebody put the peanut butter in the chocolate, and then boom.
Okay. Right. So, no, I was just, so the system, like I say, a couple of things that I wanted to accomplish was make that mixture. And it's not really all that new. Like I said, Munchausen talked about it, and maybe that's some of the first, or at least some of the first things written about it, but that was always done. I mean, if you read Little Wars and the stuff that H.G. Wells did decades before Munchausen, it wasn't wasn't really given individual names to every soldier or something like that, but there was always some element of role playing. Kriegspiel, there was an element of role playing. You were cadets playing the role of commanders that you were aspiring to be in your education. Every war game is a role playing game. Whether people understand that or not, or want to accept it or not, you are standing in as and playing a role. So it really all ends up being the same thing, whether you're fighting a dragon or a panzer tank, whether there's 5 people in a dungeon or 50,000 on a battlefield. It really isn't all that much difference. So it all works together with my system in that, with surprisingly simple comparative to what people, it's amazing. I don't know what people think I'm trying to say when I talk on Twitter about, complaining about complexity or something like that. I don't know if they really, today I put this thing out. I says, if you think I'm trying to write out quadratic equations or whatever the hell, no one's talking about that. But I mean, I don't know what you think I play. What do you
I
think
have to
play?
say, I think sometimes the people who are advertising with such an emphasis on simplicity, in some ways, it's an insult in its own. It's like, well, don't you think I can do math? Do you think that like having to add a few numbers is going to make me fail at a game or what? Well, I don't know. It's kind of like somebody offers to give you a hiking trip, but they're going to drag you in a wagon instead of making you walk it because they don't think you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can walk. I got it. I got this. It's okay.
Right. So, that's the way I see it. But I guess some people think I don't know. But really, what we're looking at is realism and tactical depth balanced with, approachable rules or whatever. Some of these terms I have to use, and I really actually despise them. Realism is another one.
Yeah.
I've gotten some. Look, here's the thing: if you've got an arrow, if you're playing D&D or any of these games, and you got an arrow, it doesn't fly forever. Once you shoot it at something, you've got a range. That range is a simulation, no matter how sophisticated, no matter how detailed or lack of detail. What you're saying is, we understand there's gravity on the planet, even if it's a fantasy planet, and that gravity is going to affect how far and how long something, flies through the air. So that's what that is. Now, a lot of people will say, well, it's just something that they made up. It's some abstraction, so it's not a simulation. Simulation, they're not mutually exclusive. Some of the more sophisticated simulations around still have some abstractions for certain reasons. Sometimes they're just because they're, if anything, practicality. You can sit in
Right.
a millions of dollars of jet fighter simulator and still not feel the G's. But if you pull enough in the simulator, the screen may go black or go red. That's abstracting the fact that if you were to pull 9 G's for too low or whatever it is, overload, that you would black out or something like that because of the centrifugal force in your blood not pumping to the proper places. So
As
they
long as
abstract
they
it.
don't simulate the part
Even
where you
though,
throw up on yourself, I'm good.
well,
No.
right. But that doesn't mean it isn't a super sophisticated thing that costs the taxpayer a lot of money, probably overpaid for it. But it's still
Oh,
a
that's
simulation.
part of the plan. Of course, it was overpaid for.
Sure. And it's it's the same thing with any of these games. You're playing in a world that is simulated, and you're playing whatever, the paladin in the make-believe pseudo medieval
Well, hell, if you
fantasy
get
world.
right down to it, I'm going to be honest here. Candyland is a simulation. No,
Well,
it is. You're simulating you've got a little token that simulates you. It represents you in a world that is controlled by colors on cards, random, but what depending on where they are and where you land, you simulate getting stuck in that molasses swamp for a few turns.
I don't know if you're being facetious or
no, it is
messing with me.
technically a simulation. It's a simulation of your path to Candy Mountain. Yeah. No, I'm not. I mean, it is the mechanism for how you're simulating it is designed to appeal to children in its simplicity because it's colors rather than counting or other more complicated things that kids aren't quite ready for yet. Adults don't need that level of dumbing down. At least we hope not. But anyway, that's what I'm saying is that when you get right down to it, all games are simulations.
Well, I don't want to get it. We're already have spent more time. Probably chased
Okay, I
everybody
am
away
getting
that
a
wants
bit
to hear
philosophical.
what I was originally.
If the tree
Sorry,
falls in
folks.
the woods, is it a simulation or not? But
Yeah.
anyway, go on. Sorry.
But maybe that'll be some topic for another time. But anyway,
Yeah.
point is that realism. I'm not, and I'm not talking about blood and guts or anything like that, but just accounting for the things that go on, and some of that is gravity. It does, you don't, like I was trying to explain last night. I actually I was going to do this on a live alone last night, and I hit the wrong button, so I ended up talking to myself. But hell, I might be talking to myself right now. But
I'm not really here. I'm a simulation.
right. But there's, and I won't get too deep into things that seem boring, but there's first order, and then there's fourth order ballistics. And so if you have a simulation that has first order, it may not be the most accurate simulation. There may be a reason why it only has that, as opposed to a much more sophisticated and accurate fourth order. But
that should be their next game, going ballistic.
Right. But
sorry.
But the point is that addressing something to represent a little bit of realism doesn't necessarily mean that you're inundating a player with some sort of whatever the hell they think they're getting. I don't know, but
that's
and
why
realism isn't about blood and guts or anything like
Candyland
that.
is a simulation too, because it really is, and it's what makes a game a simulation isn't the complexity level of it or the mechanism for how you're determining the outcome.
Something's going on with your mic. It sounds like it's bouncing off of something again. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's funk. It's
no, that was me karate chopping my desk for emphasis. I'm sorry. I won't do that.
I thought you had
I didn't
hardware malfunction.
I didn't mean to make it noisy, but yeah, I talk with my hands sometimes.
Oh, she's pounding the pulpit on Candyland back there.
That's right. Best game ever.
No, but anyway, realism is one of those terms that becomes loaded and has multiple definitions and all that. So, and you get the people that, you could never do it anyway, so why even think about it and all that. But the idea is to get some representation of technical realism, in that this is how far the thing shoots, basically. This is how fast it shoots, basically. This is essentially what will happen if you get hit by it. This doesn't get into, the shock that might be incurred by being shot or something like that. It's an abstraction of sorts, but it doesn't mean you're not playing within a simulation. Anyway, and then we got into the mathematics last night, and this is where there was a lot of contention because people start, oh, you're calling us stupid, and people complaining about the math, and people complaining about the math, and all that kind of crap. But and we kind of already covered that at the beginning of the thing, so I'll just slide by and say that what I've done with the system is just this one always blew me away too. I would explain how the sausage is made and tell you all the math that went into it, and then people would start arguing that nobody wants to do that in the game. Even after saying this isn't about what you have to do in the game, this is how the game is made. So nobody cares. So there is most of the math is in the background. But if you want to play a game that has to do with any type of combat or something like that, you have to have some sort of comparison in the world, game or anything else. That comparison comes in the form of numerical comparison. Right. How big is that versus how big is that? How long is that versus how long is that? If you're comparing by just going, well, that's a little, well, but right. But if you just go, well, that's a little longer than that, that's technically a comparison, but you know what I'm talking about. You got to have some sort of, how heavy is that versus how heavy is that? So you're never going to get away from numbers. So if you want to get away from numbers, I don't know what to tell you, because you get into this, you start have people saying, well, I don't like any of that sort of stuff. Hey, you went to McDonald's and you looked at the menu. The menu's a chart. The menu tells you how many numbers you have to pay out of your wallet. And the change machine is going to tell you how many, you can't get away from it. So
I just want to point out, and this is, indulge me, please. Philip agrees with me that I am right, that it is a simulation, although it's far from the fidelity side of simulation when we talking about Candyland, right?
We'll go, like I said, that's another Donahue. That's for next week's.
But we could argue that Candyland isn't actually a game because it doesn't entail any dilemmas. And all I can say to that, Philip, is you clearly never got stuck in the molasses swamp, because that was quite the dilemma. You had to wait till you got just the right card to get out. So, but anyway, the point. The point stands, though, from what you're saying, as far as like, if you get into how the game is built, it's kind of like if I were a real estate agent and I was showing you a house and I gave you the location of every single strut in the wall and of the measurements of everything and all. You don't really need to know any of that to live in the house. And the same thing is true when it comes to a game. I mean, the person building the game needs to know the stats as far as what is reasonable if a Panzerfaust is firing on a tank.
Well,
what would happen, right?
See, but reasonable isn't the word I'd use in that sense, though.
But at the same time, I mean, when you're creating the game, you're putting together the what is the most likely outcome in different scenarios based on the knowledge and the information on how those different, weapons work, right? What their defensive capabilities are, offensive capabilities, the distance, the range, all the stuff that we talked about. The person playing the game doesn't have to look at every single study where that knowledge came from. They just look at what the rules say as far as how that particular weapon would interact with that particular tank. And so in that respect, it may be built on something way more complex than you're actually using when you play it. You have a rule set that's based on complexity, but you don't necessarily have to be that complex in your side of it. You're just, okay, this is how far I am from the tank. That's what I need to know, how far I am from it, so I know if I'm within the range of the weapon I'm using, and I need to know what I have to roll for a successful shot. And then the other person, maybe I need to know what their defensive value turns out to be and whether or not I hit or damage the unit in question, right? All right. Yeah. I mean, that's all I need to know as a player. You who are crafting the game would need to know what those rules need to be set up to properly be
We-
fair
that
representation of what the game you're trying to make is, right?
we can hear you tickling those ivories again.
Am I
Sorry.
do? Oh, sorry. I can't keep my. Maybe I should sit on my hands for the. When I get excited, I do that. Sorry. But am
Yeah.
I right? Yeah, the person crafting the game or running the game, a DM or GM, has the complicated part. The player doesn't so much.
Well, that's
They
the intent. Here's the thing:
right.
if you're gonna, one of the things with this system is try to get a referee. And quite frankly, any war game you're going to play, try to get a referee. Try to get a third person to arbitrate the rules for you and to handle fog of war for you. Read about Kriegspiel. Look at how Kriegspiel was done. Play every war game in that sense, and you will have a completely different experience. If you played these things in the past and go, I tried it with my buddy and it was kind of boring because this, that, and the other thing. And if you played head to head like it was Parcheesi or Sorry or something like that, or some just advanced chess match, it is a whole new dimension comes when somebody volunteers to be that third person. Now, we didn't get to do that a lot at home because everybody was hyperactive and they wanted to be participatory. And it sucked to be the guy that got stuck being your Saturday afternoon went from gaming to choring if you got stuck being the referee. So we never got to do a lot of that when we were 14 at first. But once we really got somebody to do it for us, we started doing it because it was incredible. So this is meant to be an RPG / type of war game, and it doesn't have to have a referee, but you won't get the same yield out of it if you don't. Because yes, in that sense, then you don't, as a player, need to really learn a whole hell of a lot of this thing. And this is simple enough as it is. But if you play with a ref, then all you got to do is focus on making the decisions instead of doing any of the other stuff. That's the whole idea that I have for all the games that I want to play. I love to play online. I can't get a lot of people to do it, but Magenta here didn't play RPGs. We didn't teach her the entirety of the West End game Star Wars system we were playing. We sat her down and explained, here's how you make a character, and here's the basics for combat and how to check to see if you've done something like hack a computer or healed your person or something like that. Those minimal basics is all we taught her, and the rest was just, we'll handle it. Let the DM take care of it.
Right.
That's the best.
And I
way
did
to
have
do this
enough
stuff.
knowledge to know whether or not I wanted to attempt something. I mean, you got to if you're going to be a good player, you got to know at least enough, or figure out, whether or not it's a reasonable thing to try to attempt. But yeah, for the most part, anything I didn't know, I was able to ask and get help with as I was playing, which is one of the advantages too of having a GM or a DM. But one of the other things with the wargaming side of it, having a GM or a DM is you can have fog of war. I mean, you could have unexpected events, like especially say you're playing something that's historical, there were regular things that would be coming from headquarters or from from your higher ups that can be random events in the game that can really make it more of a role-playing type of scenario rather than a just a strictly strategic or tactical kind of exercise.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Michael
all
asked,
of a sudden, cancel your mission and head west. We have something else to deal with, and you're like, whoa, I had planned to now what, and you have to think fast.
mm-hmm. Right.
Oh, Storm, I don't know if you saw Michael's question about the knowledge and statistics and simulating certain situations via different probability curves with multiple variables and whatnot.
Well, right. that would be the kind of thing that you would put into certain systems. But I wouldn't try to sell something like that to a gaming community. But those are the kinds of things we did, and I, in the professional sense. See, that's the other thing with this. I used to do this sort of stuff in a professional sense, and that not the not connections or any of that crap. I shouldn't say the word crap, but none of that. But it was before any of that, and I'm not into that side. If you're into wargaming now, you'll see connections, and you'll see all certain entities involved, and that wasn't what I was doing, but because I'm older than that, but and I wasn't in that big of a firm, but we did do simulations to that effect, and we would use things like that. But see, there's the thing where you have that appears to be the perception that people have, because I get miffed when people complain about adding negative and positive integers, that it goes to that extreme, and this isn't about that extreme. So do I use like the one I'm talking about now? This is so rule of thumb. You couldn't sell this to anybody as any type of simulation or anything like that. It's really very arbitrary, and if you really want to get down to it. Now, the armor penetration, that's a little bit different. And the only reason it is because I got the information from somebody who was doing a very intense study. Now, that study doesn't mean nothing for the gamer. You don't care a bit about it.
Like the studs of the house. You don't have to know where they are to live in the house.
Okay, right? I mean, it gave you a set of information in a chart that looks no different than 90% of the late 70s, early 80s war games that you got, tactical World War II war games. Here's your penetration at range. That's all. But where those particular numbers came from was a high, a fairly complicated thing. Now, as far as the small arms, I didn't do all that. I got a nifty little rule of thumb that works. And the reason I use that is because I can use it for things like crossbows and arrows too. So is it realistic? It's realistic in the sense that it isn't something I just pulled out of a hat or made up or just discounted because people think that's too tedious or burdensome or whatever cliche they want to apply to it. You do have a range. There is a possibility of missing the further out the target is from where you're standing and stuff like that. Yeah. So, and there are variables, because if you don't, here's what happens when people go, I don't want to count all those variables and stuff. Then all of a sudden they play a game and they go, well, I got hit hiding behind a wall. I had a wall up. I was behind a 3-foot stone wall. Well, you didn't want to consider that. You didn't want to consider being in hard cover. You didn't want to consider being soft cover because that was too complicated. That made the game bog down. Well, all of a sudden you start getting results that start going, hey, that doesn't seem right. If I was thinking that through my head without rules, that wouldn't really play out that way, right? Because some of those considerations really apply.
I remember getting really, really upset when I played a particular video game, and I think this was a cheat code, but it could be just bad coding, where I was literally that same thing happened to me. I was standing behind a wall and got shot by someone.
Well, those guys were cheating.
How? Huh?
No, those guys were cheating.
But the point is that whether it was a cheat code or just bad programming or just a bad game design, in either case, it's upsetting when you are taking, because because that's part of the game experience, is that you as a player are trying to make good decisions, like taking cover when you're in a enemy, potentially, around enemies where you don't want to get shot, and you see you're hiding, um, taking cover when you need to, or you're rushing a certain position, from cover of trees, or at night or whatever, because it's supposed to give you an advantage. But then the game doesn't take that into consideration at all, because to make it easier, we've just erased all of those factors from the game. So
Well, they
yeah.
say it makes it easier, but what it really is somehow that doesn't. So we had this conversation before we started, and she goes, "Well, don't say certain things." And but here's the thing: I tell people, if that's a bothersome to you, that's not just that's what video games are for. She goes, "Oh, you're insulting people and all that." I said, "I don't think so. I think that if you want it, if that is tedium to you, and that's fine. Your level of input, or whatever you want to call it, is your business. It's your free time. But I'm not saying you suck, get out of my game space or any of that crap. I'm saying it sounds like you're searching for something in the wrong place. And where you really be satisfied and enjoy yourself is in front of a video game, where those kinds of things aren't considered, or you don't have to think about them. They're just handled instantaneously. There's nothing wrong with that. I play video games too. So people take that, just go play the video game, as some sort of invective or attack. And no, it's just the only thing that bothers me is I've gone for decades. I've listened to people, argue, well, I want this and this is too hard and all this sort of stuff. And you realize, like, I'll talk to them as if I've got somebody who's potentially wants to buy what I'm selling, whether it be an idea or a product. And you realize all they want to do is argue. All they want to do is try to point out that you're wrong and you can't achieve what you said you've achieved. They have absolutely no interest in the thing whatsoever. And they're just yanking your chain. Oh, you can't do that. That's too complicated. You just, if you're not in the market for tabletop, cool. But stop shopping around in the tabletop space acting like you are. Because you can tell that after you talk to them for a while, they want a video game. Okay, go get one. That's all.
Well, I like both. I like video games for what they offer. But the thing about video games, and I think that this is, as I'm getting older too, full disclosure, because I'm not, I've got grandkids now, and so, I'm not as young as I used to be, but your reflexes change as you get a bit older. And so the thing about video games is that they can become an exercise in hand-eye coordination exclusively, which starts to fade over time. But your mind can still stay sharp. Your desire for playing a game that is exciting and fast-paced is still there, but maybe you physically can't do the movements, or even keep up with that. So it's something that, it can be a lot of fun to play that out in a way where it is more turn-based, where it is more about making the right decisions. Because like some of the video games, I know exactly where I want to get my person to take a shot or to sneak up on someone. But oh man, I moved that mouse just a little bit too far, and now I exposed myself. Now I'm got shot in the head. And now it's frustrating because that wasn't what I wanted to do. Oh, or I didn't move there fast enough, or grab my stuff fast enough, or just hand-eye coordination isn't there to
Yeah.
meet what you're trying to do. So it's still there. There's the other thing too, is when you're playing a game with people that you're either talking with virtually or in person with, or something like that, there's a group dynamic where you feel connected to those people. And yes, a lot of games have ways where you can, type to your opponents, or you can even talk over headsets or something like that. But it's not quite the same when you're running around with a character. It's not the same experience. You don't feel like you are actually participating in something with a group of people. It feels like, I don't know, there's some kind of separation between you and them. It's just not the same. It's not as collective, or there's no one to pat you on the back when you have a good experience or whatever. The camaraderie's not there, right?
Yep. Yep. So, no, yeah, you're right. So yeah, here's the thing with what I took. So, like I mentioned, there's a lot of people that get into credentialism, and I knew a lot of these guys, not real well. They weren't my besties or anything like that, but I've met with Costigan and Frank Chadwick, and I never got a chance to talk with Dunnigan, though I wish I would have. I got to meet him, but a lot of people got to do that. Hi, Mr. Dunnigan, I like your stuff. Can you, that's all I got. Please sign my book. But I got to talk to Chadwick, and I got to talk to Larry Bond and some of these other guys, these other wargaming guys. So, and there's nothing against them. It's not that, I mean, obviously they know what they're talking about. They made products and all that stuff, but they aren't the only ones that can do it. And, Larry came out of the same kind of thing. I mean, he's a little bit higher up on the food chain than I was, but he was doing the same sort of things with training simulations and operational analysis and stuff like that. Or operations analysis, excuse me. Dude's a smart cookie. He's a sharp tack, but and Chadwick's not an idiot. I'm not saying but I had some fundamental disagreements with Frank, and he didn't take that very well. And a lot of people gave me the same spiel. Oh, you can't do that. He's made all these great games and all that stuff. Yeah, but he's not. Some of it ain't coming from the right place, in my opinion. I didn't agree with everything he did. So there's a lot of reasons that you don't get commercial success. There's a lot of reasons why you may not be published. There's a lot of people that have credentials that I knew. There was once a guy who had a degree from Harvard that couldn't say the word strategic. Just saying. So, I don't really get into that stuff as being all that monumental either. But anyway, the game I made is fairly simple. But it does require a little bit of calculation on the fly. If you don't want that, you can have the charts, but it's one of these deals where I see people go, just like I said earlier, they want to argue everything no matter what. Well, I don't want to do that math. It's not that I can't do the math. It's tedious to do it at the table. Okay, here's a chart now you don't have to do the math. Well, I don't like walking at a chart because it takes my eyes off the action. Well, what do you want me to do? There's nothing that will satisfy the gripe. So is this somebody who's really interested? If they were interested, they would go, oh, he's got an interesting solution, or he's got an interesting idea. I'd like to explore that further. But if all they're going to do is just keep telling you that every solution you provide has its own additional problem, all they're doing is they're just yanking your chain, right?
They're making a blueberry muffins excuse.
Blueberry
muffins. There's a story behind the blueberry muffins about a farmer who had a tractor, and his neighboring farmer needed to borrow his tractor, which, he's a nice guy. So he said, okay, you can borrow my tractor. And the guy borrowed the tractor and then, returned it, and everything was fine until like the next day, the guy needs to borrow the tractor again. And this kept happening. And he loaned it out a few times, and then finally he got to where he didn't really want to do it anymore. So he started saying, well, I can't loan you the tractor because, because it's just it needs air in the tires, so I can't loan it to you today. And next day the guy would ask for it again. Well, I can't loan it to you today because it's out of gas. Can't loan it to you today because of something else. And finally, this goes on for a while. And then finally, the guy asks him, can he borrow the tractor? And he says, I can't loan you the tractor because my wife's making blueberry muffins. The guy's like, what's that got to do with it? Nothing. But I just figure at this point, one excuse is as good as another.
She's from North Carolina, folks. Is this an Andy Griffith thing?
No, it's not Andy Griffith. Okay. Not
right,
everything in North Carolina came from Andy Griffith. I mean, he was a great guy, but he didn't invent everything we said.
All right. All right. But
okay.
Oh no, it makes sense. No, I get it. But it's but that's the deal.
Okay. You're welcome to it, Michael.
But it keep on coming with all these excuses. But that's the thing. So all you're doing with this game is when it comes to combat, what I set up was you can have the chart. I like options. I like giving people options. I don't like painting myself in the corner and say, here's how you do it, because there are a lot of people that have tremendous preference issues and things like that. So you have you can count the range and come up with a probability to hit. Real simple. And that probability also, now some people don't like this either, but again, some people don't like everything. But it doubles as the potential for how much damage is done, if any. So that keeps the rolling down a little bit. Now this is all done on one chart. I have what's basically a CRT. Okay, so there's your shooting, and that's for everything that's ballistic.
Wait, a CRT, cathode ray tube? What?
Oh shit! Here we go. Combat resolution table.
Okay.
And there's another one where people go, oh, that's so old, and those were so antiquated and blibby. Yeah, I know, but the whole idea. Here's the thing. It's not meant to be another adage, another outlook that I just can't abide by, is the idea that these games and the mechanics that fuel them are like technology. And when people go, well, that was a product of its time, and this is modern design. No, look, here's the thing. Some of the best ideas that continue to be used for good, because they are that good, came from things of the past. It's amazing how you can't be exposed to everything in gaming, every idea, every person who's read it. There's people who have seen Gene McCoy's stuff from the late 70s and 80s and said, Gene came up with this idea. He's an innovator who innovated this great idea. And the reason they think that is because they don't know that Gene was reading, Donald Featherstone or Jack Scrooby and took what those guys were doing and repurposed it, or were influenced by it in what he was doing. So there was no innovation. It's like saying Led Zeppelin 1 was an innovation. Was it? Kind of, maybe. But really what they were doing is they were taking a lot of other guys' stuff and doing it just a little bit different.
So it was a modification of a real innovation.
Yeah.
And just because something's new doesn't necessarily make it better. I mean, sometimes the things bread was invented thousands of years ago. It's still very popular today.
Right. Yeah. It's so that's why I just
fire.
The CRT. What was the last part of that?
Fire. We still use it.
Right. There you go. Fair point. But yeah, the CRT works. It works because you can use it in multiple ways with this one. And that means, here's the other great part about this. What I do is, but I want to play. So if you want to play World War II, you're going to get the chart. It's going to be configured the same way, but the numbers inside might be a little bit different. Why? Because when I want you there's a couple statements I want to make. I don't want to try to corner people or anything like that, but I do want to make a couple of statements. And when it comes to shooting bullets at each other, that's a nasty business, and you're not going to last real long if you don't take some cover. So if you run out into the open and expose yourself as a player character, you might be dead toot sweet. There's no resurrections. There's no, we're going to go from 0 hit points to -5 before you're really dead, and you have 5 chances for somebody to breathe life back. No, man, you're snapped like a twig, faster than you can say Jack Robinson. It could come out of nowhere. You'll never know what happened. Yeah, it's meant to be very lethal. But maybe you want to play that Conan heroic fantasy type of thing, where it's a little bit different. And you, the super heroic hero, doesn't just get iced by some temple cultist guard. No, you got to fight the big bad. Okay, so the numbers in the chart change such that it's a lot more of a long slog before you die. That any one thing, just because you took a shot to the head, you're Conan, man. You can just shake that off and fight back. So the lethality changes in the results on these charts based on what you're playing, without having to go through a whole bunch of new rules. So whether you're firing a laser pistol or a muzzle loading musket or whatever, most of that is all going to be the same. Just how far, here's its accuracy, here's your skill. That comes out to be your percentage chance to hit or something like that. And as far as doing things like the RPG idea of, doing skill checks, have I picked that lock? Have I hacked that computer? Have I found that trap or whatever it is? That's there. I kept it, again, simple. And I may not have been able to have a chat with Jim Dunnigan, which I wish I did, but I certainly read everything that guy I'm a big fan of Jim. So I read all his stuff. And one of the things that he said was plagiarize, and not in the illegal sense. It was simply just kind of a hint that there's no reason to reinvent the wheel if you don't need to. If what some other guy did in another game works to keep yours going or to put yours together, why not, just adapt it to it? So I liked West End game Star Wars. Those were some of the guys I actually did get to hang out with a little bit, the Star Wars guys.
And isn't it true you
their
can't,
system for skill checks?
just to clarify, you can't plagiarize math.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. You can't plagiarize
statistics
and stuff like that.
Yeah, those can't be plagiarized. I mean, they're just truisms. So
Right.
there's no, otherwise, only one person could ever add 2 + 2 correctly.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It was just a little adage that Jim used in his Wargamers handbook. And just to clarify, he didn't mean go stealing people's stuff, but there's no reason not to, to adapt something to your system as opposed to having to rethink everything all the time. So I use the West End game thing. You'll see that even in Wargaming with my system, you'll see the saving throw. There's always a little hint of RPG mixed in with the wargaming stuff like that. So you'll be making, whether you're getting breathed on by a dragon that blows chlorine gas, or you're in the trenches of Verdun or something like that, you'll be making a saving throw versus gas if you're subjected to it.
That makes sense, because I'll tell you, even if it seems very unlikely, there are anomalies that, and the bar could be very high for a saving throw, but there should be something where you get to, if you're the target of a hit, you get a chance to try your hand at that luck. Like my granddad was actually in World War II, and he ended up with the nickname Lucky because of a couple of times where if things had just gone slightly different, by all accounts, common wisdom would say he would have been dead at least 3 or 4 times. Like he gets off the boat, after the boat's unloaded, like 2 seconds after he gets off the boat and out of range, it sinks, gets hit by fire, and it takes enemy fire and sinks. Mortar lands right next to him and it's a dud. I mean, these things just kept happening. So he ended up with the name Lucky as a nickname in World War II. So, I think it's good to have that, even if it seems like it's a slim chance that you can, defend yourself against something.
Right. Here's the other thing with modifiers and saving throws that I do. Instead of having the saving throw be a determinate number that changes based on your level or something like that, I use modifiers. A lot of people, again, we go back to people complaining about modifiers in mathematics, but they're malleable. They're easier used, in my opinion, to get where you want to go. Let's give you an example. Poison. Standard poison, just something, or maybe something that's super. Maybe you've got the toxin of a basilisk, or you've wrung out a black widow or a mamba or whatever the one is that's the super bad one, something like
Mamba.
that. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit stronger than your average, so instead of having another, section of the chart, or have another saving throw, but it's not just saving throw versus poison, it's saving throw versus super bad poisonous animal thing or whatever, and having a jillion categories. Just have a saving throw chart, and depending on what's happening, what you're saving against, there's a modifier, that changes the severity of the issue. And that way you don't have to have 5 or 6 or more separate. It's +2 poison. You're saving against a grenade. Okay, well, there's no modifier. But if it's a 2,000-pound bomb that landed on your head or something, maybe it'd be a little bit high, there'd be a modifier or something like that. So that's the way that the saving throws work. So, but I think that the thing that, and I'm not much of a bragger, I'm not much of a fan of even the use of the word innovation. I think it's often misused, but I think that what I've done is unique in that this is a system that you could go and play something like Panzer Blitz or some sort of hex and counter game with, and use this system in lieu of the system that the rules that came with that, and play it out and have a lot of fun. Make your own hex and counter game and use the system and do it. But you could turn around the next day and use the same system to go run through Keep at the Borderlands, or something like that, and it would work. And I think that's something that is never been done before.
Oh yeah, and being able to apply all of the different, right. But being able to make it, the game is the same basic rules, but with the characters that you're playing or the genre that you're playing makes the difference in how it works. Like, if you're playing a wizard or something like that, there's obviously going to be things that are unique to that class of fighter that you're playing, being a wizard versus I'm
sure you're not going to use magic rules if you're in Normandy. I mean, you could, and that's the other beauty of it. Maybe you want to do
bedknobs and broomsticks did it.
Sure, there exactly. Maybe you want to do that.
Angela Lansbury action.
Maybe there you go. There you go. Mm-hmm. See, that it doesn't. That's the other reason I did it that way. And you don't have to learn. I also used a version of the West End Games Star Wars scale system. So if you're going to, you don't have to make a lot of changes if you're fighting something that's gigantic, or if you're fighting something that's small or anything like that. And I do like the idea of crossing genres. It was another reason I want to make it all cross compatible. So like she says, something like bedknobs and broomsticks, or cowboys and aliens, anything like that can be done. And some people say, well, the hard part about that is there might be a balance issue. Yeah, there might be a balance issue. That's up to you as the game creator. I don't want this thing to be something where you're all being dictated to about where you play and how you play in that world. Do whatever you want. If you don't care about the fact that you've got knights versus, stormtroopers with laser guns or whatever, there you go. Enjoy.
You shine that armor up on those knights and you can reflect those lasers right back at them.
There you go. Make them, So I don't know how much, me and Magenta are good at rambling conversation and meandering on and off topic. Is there anybody still around? Anybody still interested in hearing anything more about it? Questions, comments, criticisms? Anything else? Magenta, can you think of anything that we haven't touched on or anything like that?
Well, I mean, there's always more to say. You know me, I can talk a blue streak. I never really understood that phrase. What exactly is a blue streak, and how do you talk?
A blue streak was always said to be. My grandmother always said that is they can curse a blue streak.
Huh?
Not talk, curse.
Well, yeah, I don't know, but
and I can do that, but I
don't understand it because I don't get it anyway, but I can keep talking forever is the point. And so I never run out of steam, but if there's something anybody wants to ask specifically, or if anyone wants to come up on the mic and have a turn at, sharing their point of view, whether it agrees or disagrees with us, is all points of view are welcome. So, just make a request in there. Also, this might be a good time to remind anyone who's still with us, if you enjoy our content, and we probably don't say that as often as we should. I see lots of other creators who are constantly, every half hour or so, they're reminding you where just subscribe, share with your friends, get the word out for us. If you are so motivated, we would really appreciate it. And of course, I'll be the wizard. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, why not? Who wouldn't be the wizard?
So everything's in there, including chases, just to give you a little bit more. Oh, another thing that a lot of people like. I had a lot of people tell me, I don't have enough. You can never have enough, according to a lot of people, random generators and stuff like that. So not only do we have random generators for terrain, we have it for continental terrain, for dungeon terrain, for micro terrain, for macro terrain. We got it coming from every direction. We have a system that will completely generate not only all of that, but a adventure. Who's involved? Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? What are you after? What are you doing? The whole 9 yards. You don't have to do anything but roll dice to come up with a complete one-off module using these generators. You could even do a whole campaign with them.
You know what I would like to do? And this may be off the wall, but when you said that it handles chase and pursuit and all that kind of stuff, I immediately wanted to do a Wile E. Coyote versus Roadrunner game.
Me too. There you go. That's hell yeah. Hell yeah. I would just do that. That would just be a fun way to demo it.
That would be kind of
great. Oh, do we have? No, we don't have it yet. No, one of the here's the thing. Yeah, I know. I'm a bad boy. I'm in a lot of trouble. I was supposed to have this out a long time ago as far as a physical book to give to you. I allowed myself to get pushed and spooked and on the whole art thing. I wasn't sure what to do with that.
That is an open question, because in order to have a book that's appealing, you need artwork. In order to produce it, you've got, I mean, if you have to pay for the artwork, then when I calculated this thing, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put a couple of, a couple of things in, maybe get in, a cover
something like that. I really didn't expect to illustrate it. This is my age. I mean, everybody's seen stuff from the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. I I didn't care. To me, I heard that. That was wild. You got Chucky in
Oh,
the
are
back.
you hearing the laughing? That's my grandkids laughing.
Anyway,
So-
it was the book was read the instructions, take the artwork and the fun to the table. It was I don't this so I thought, well, just I'll get some generated images and stuff like that for a cover. No big deal. I didn't know as far as that goes. I never had to deal with that sort of thing in the past. And I got lambasted. You can't do that. It's thievery and all this stuff. And people got really on me about it. And I go, well, gee, and
yeah,
if
and
you
if
use that,
you use
we'll
AI
boycott.
generated art, nobody will ever talk to you again.
You'll be extracized from the community, and you'll never make a sale, and everybody will boycott you and will hate you for life, and you suck. Oh, well, now I have to consider that. So that's been a very frustrating thing.
So I'm teaching my mom to draw dragons. My mom's actually a really good artist, but she's never done. She can draw a mean fairy. Well, actually, they're not. None of them look very mean, but they could be mean. You don't know. Fairies are unpredictable. But yeah. So I'm gonna have to get her some images to look at and see what she can do about a dragon or two. But
so
who
that's
knows?
where we're at, because
Yeah.
every other option was either beyond our financial means or was naughty, apparently. So Philip says I came in late. What the game is? Well, it's my gaming system. I call it paracosmic conversion, Philip. The reason I called it paracosmic convergence is I was one of the ideas that I had for a world that to come with it. I have a couple of campaign worlds. Was I wanted this to be about the past. I like to. I'm kind of an old school type of person. Wasn't real. I don't want to get too Dr. Phil about this thing, but wasn't always in the great space, and said, it was so much fun in the past when you didn't have, like responsibility and stuff, and you could just go out and play. And I got thinking about, as a kid, I used to go out and play and do these kind of LARPing, like we were talking about a little bit earlier. You were role playing all the time, whether you knew it or not. We were out there with trash can lids and sticks playing knights and shining armor and swacking each other. And we had the BB guns playing, Westerns with the cap guns and all that sort of stuff. So I learned, that I wanted to make a world that you wanted to live in, was one of the advice that I had. And I thought, boy, I had a lot of fun doing that sort of stuff. So I came up with paracosm, which is just a kind of a clinical, apparently, or psychological term for a made up imaginary world. That some of the examples were Middle Earth, the Forgotten Realms, places like that were considered paracosms. Well, when we played, me and my friends, sometimes it was sci-fi. We were trying to be like Star Wars. Sometimes it was just, we were playing guns. We were like, I don't know, the A-Team or Rat Patrol or Combat with Vic Morrow or something like that. Yeah. So sometimes it was
in my head again. Thank you for that.
Sorry. Sometimes it was the Western and whatever it was. So the convergence was, I just want a little bit of everything. I want to be able to play all the different genres. I wanted the system to handle all the different genres. So the convergence is all those different paracosms, the knight in shining, the fantasy, and the Western, the sci-fi, and all that sort of stuff. So, and one of the little gimmicks that I put in there was each one of these worlds, because I like the idea of mixing them together in some cases. Each one of these worlds that I make has a porthole in it. It's very hard to find. It's very difficult to understand which one leads where. So I tried to balance it with not being just some swinging door, but something that was very unlikely for you to come across. But if you did, as a player party, you could walk through that and move into a different realm. And that realm may be a 19th century American Western. It might be, a modern 20th century city. It might be some sci-fi place. It might be some horror film realm or whatever like that. But it gave the opportunity to kind of mix and match. And that's where the term paracosmic convergence comes from.
It might be a Stargate.
Yeah, I do too, Philip. I like the old, it might be Stargate. That was kind of, people were like, oh, you're kind of copying Stargate. And I go, I guess subconsciously, maybe I was, but I do like the old school artwork. I like the minimal idea. I don't have anything against people like Easley or Frazetta or whatever that. I appreciate that kind of art, but I remember everybody harkens back to where they cut their teeth on these games. And for me, it was a small paperback pamphlet that maybe had a picture on the front and the back, mimeographed or whatever, because we didn't have even dot matrix yet, printers, and everything was typed up by hand and stuff like that, and I bought them at my friendly neighborhood. I mean, I had Avalon Hill and stuff like that, but I remember some of these local neighborhood game store games that I had tons of, and they all looked like that. And hell, the original D&D did too. And that's kind of where I'm at. I like that as well, that minimalist idea. For me, like when I went to Gen Con, would I go to the art fair? Sure, I'd stroll through there and be amazed and, and looking at Vallejo and all that stuff. But that was what I did when I had an hour where I wasn't playing games. That wasn't, it wasn't it was an interesting craft that came along with gaming. It wasn't the center of the gaming world for me. A lot of these guys now, they're all about, well, you can't play unless your mind's primed by some color painting to get your imagination going. I don't know. I guess not me.
Some people are more visual than others. Personally, I have aphantasia, so I don't visualize anything. But for some people, that's a very, big part of the experience. But worst comes to worst, I have even considered doing this. I'll needle felt some artwork.
I don't know that would work well in the printer machine, though.
Well, yeah.
As far as the book goes,
the wool could get a little clogged in there. I could see that, but
I don't know how well it would work there.
I could do some.
You could knit me one of those grandma book covers for it, though. My grandmother had a few of those. I don't know. Uh-oh, I lost her. She went by.
No, sorry. I have hold on a second. Sorry, I'm still here.
Anyway, but yeah, that's why the book hasn't occurred. But this is my system, and I was bringing up the squad, what I call light squad leader, which isn't really an official term. It was just a way to explain to people the war game version of it. I had some people that were following me that were squad leader fans, and they go, well, I'd love to play some of those scenarios, but I'm not rereading that book. So, and they had some other issues with it. Oh, there was one other thing, the penetration. Some guys said, oh, I liked squad leader until I had to fight panzers and they're overpowered or something like that. Well, that's a whole long discussion, but what I did to rectify it is fairly simple. With my penetration, you roll a dice, a die, I should say, to use the proper English, and it determines a little bit of variance in the penetration versus the armor. So it's never a sure thing. And that way, one shot may go through and the other one may not. So nothing's 100% guaranteed or 100% failure. So I do that by it's actually two dice, come to think of it. One is to determine whether the penetration is a little bit less or a little bit more than expected. That's how you do that. What are you going to scan your needle work?
Yeah,
Put it
my
in
needle
a
felting. Yeah, I could
scanner and then put it on the front of
take
the book.
some pictures of it, you know. Um, yeah, I mean, some of it would come out pretty good. My little Santa came out really nice, and I got a really cool dinosaur. A dragon would be a lot of fun to needle felt.
What else? Yeah, it would. That'd be great. What else can we cover before, you know? Can you think of anything else we haven't covered? Any, you know, I do great with question and answer. Anybody got any questions, comments? Feel free to speak up. Come on the mic, say something, whatever if you want. All you got to do to come on the mic is take a link. We'll give you a link. You click on the link, you turn on your mic, and you can talk to us.
Oh, the dice rolling system. Did you decide on
99% chance. What's that? Did I
oh,
decide on what?
sorry. The dice. Did you decide to do the what kind of dice rolling would it be?
What would?
For the resolution, were you doing like the percentile dice kind of
Yeah,
system?
yes.
And then with
It's
the
when you're,
modifier.
yeah, percentile dice. Yeah, with the combat percentile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which, you know, that makes the most sense because we did the whole like the 3D6, which I know they say like has like that bell curve in it. But to me, that just seemed to kind of complicate things more than simplify them, or it was confusing, and trying to get things to kind of work out right so that they were realistic was actually harder to do than just going with like what would the real odds be of this particular event happening. And then if there's a modifier, like, you know, you're taking cover, it changes it in one direction or the other, that kind of thing.
mhm. How well are the portals detailed? And that each portal in my, I do well. I was about to answer another question, but um, one of my own making. But the portholes are not well detailed in that you don't know anything about them other than the tome that comes with them. The tome is not in the same places as the portal, and the tome explains vaguely some
Like a riddle.
things. Well, not really a riddle as such. It's not, but it does have some explanation um, as to what may be on the other side. But it's pretty hard to figure out. I didn't want these things to be, swinging doors. So if you might find the porthole without the tome, and then you don't know what the hell you're getting into. And if you still want to go through it, player agency and all that. But if you read the tome, you might be able, if you find the right person or you have the right skills, you might be able to decipher enough to get some inkling of where you're going or where it leads to. But it may not be real good. For example, if you're in a fantasy world and the porthole leads to some science fiction thing, it's going to be difficult to explain what that is. The people might not even know. So it might show up as just being imagine what some very ancient person, well, if you're what's the name of that magenta, the one that everybody loves, your mom,
What?
UFOs, the UFO.
Oh, Ancient Aliens.
There you go. Something like that, where they explain something in very primitive ways, even though they're talking about something extremely advanced or something like that. So they're all worded
Right, like there was a
differently.
chariot of fire, but it's actually a
Yeah, some of them are like that, and so there's all sorts of different variants, but yeah, they're not really all that well detailed. And the point is that that would make sense within the context of the worlds, and the other reason it's done that way is because I want to make sure that the players consider it, try to understand it better, and realize that their game is going to significantly change if they decide to step through the thing. So, but ultimately, it's their choice. I guess is there a set of rules on how they function? yeah, there's
Well,
some
be
guidelines.
careful. Sorry, I'm going to step in and caution, because as like having the discussions on the side, on the creative side of things, there's some things that could be, I would say, spoilers for, you don't want to necessarily know ahead too much, but it's kind of something that as you play, you get more detail that would kind of answer your question. Does that make sense, Michael?
No, but I know what he's saying. He goes, "What I mean, what do we do as a DM or as a player? What exactly
Oh,
changes when
gotcha.
I step through this?" No, but I understand what you're saying too. But yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, there's some guidelines and things like that. But um, there isn't a lot to it. There isn't a need for it because um, everything stays the same. When I say everything stays the same, I mean mechanically and stuff like that. For the most part, obviously, if you're playing in basic, or basic fantasy, Jesus, jeez. If you're playing in a fantasy realm, you don't have any rules for lasers, so you'll have to go look at the rules for laser if you go from from fantasy to sci-fi or something like that. But uh, stats and all that sort of thing doesn't change. So um, it's real easy to make the transition if your party decides to step through one of these things. As far as the DM goes, mechanically, that is. As far as the players making the transition from one genre to the other, we'll see how they handle it. I guess that would change from time to time. But yeah, there's a list
Yeah,
of
you better upgrade those bows and arrows to
yeah,
something a
right.
little more.
Right. And I know that I've had these conversations with people where they go, I don't know about that. That's going to be real hard to do. That might be a bad thing. People are going to find that's unbalanced. And what are they going to do when they walk into a 20th century and they get shot by a modern pistol and they're wearing plate mail or something like that? And yeah, I mean, if you willy nilly into it, yeah, you could find yourself in a world of hurt and it could change your experience real fast. But I want to encourage investigation and discovery and learning inside the system when it comes to these things. So um, there's where it goes. But it's old school in that you're not you're never supposed to be attached to your character until your character is really gone somewhere. I don't like fast leveling. I don't have levels in the system at all, like experience levels. You have skills that advance, um, but lethality is generally high comparative to many other games. So if you make it through, then feel attached because you've really. I want a sense of accomplishment uh, when you advance with the characters. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just a simple guidelines that explains how to make the change and stuff like that, or how to DM it. But again, that lethality changes should you want it to, especially with the heroic fantasy, because everybody's on about that.
Yeah, because there are times when you do want to play that way, where you have one character that you're building over the long haul that's going to be your hero, and that's going to be different than if you're just,
Same with superhero stuff. I guess I forgot to
yeah.
mention that. Then I think about it last time, but you could do superhero stuff in the same deal. That you can use the same combat charts and not do that. So
What's your Superman rule, though?
oh well.
So the Superman rule. Okay, here's the thing: Superman, because if you have a Superman in any of your games, everybody wants to be Superman because he's almost invulnerable, with the exception of kryptonite, which is hard to come by. Unless, of course, you've got a Lex Luthor who's equally powerful showing up at the same time to counter your Superman. But the point that I'm making is that Superman is just so invulnerable that it's just like, okay, so what could you throw at him? I mean, it's just, you know what I mean? There's just, if he's in the game, then everybody else should just turn around and go home, unless they're Lex Luthor.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, to me, if you're going to have a superhero themed game, you need to have like where they have some, powers and some vulnerabilities. You know what I mean? And they can't be all powerful. I mean, Superman, granted, does have a vulnerability with kryptonite, but it's such a slight one that it's kind of he's virtually invulnerable, which makes him like a spoiler for everything else.
Yeah, I would imagine he'd be an NPC.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
And usually he's in his fortress of solitude, I imagine, unless,
Mm-hmm.
unless it gets serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That answers that question. And I mean, obviously, when we're talking about, named characters from other, they're copyrighted. So
Yeah, you won't
that's
have that kind of stuff.
thing that you would have to have, like people would have to choose on their own to, because you
Here's
couldn't.
the deal. There's a nudge when it
Right.
you can do this thing is set up for editing, for customization, for making your own monsters, your own NPCs, or any of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I can't sell you, Darth Vader or Star Destroyer, but the game is set up in such a way that you get. Now, here's the other thing you can do. You can do this. You can go, well, here's what I did. Here's gamer Johnny Johnston has made up, using our system, all the cool stuff for Star Wars. Yay! And then Johnny puts his stuff on our website so that everybody can play Star Wars. So now we all got the Star Wars stuff, Star Wars according to Johnny, that is. And bingo, bango, bongo, you can do your Star Wars and it's all the nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I didn't sell you anything, but you can't, the editors you can't sue about. I already been through that one.
Okay.
You win.
Yeah. So obviously what people do creatively on their own within the game is
and I can tell you what you do in your own house with this stuff is a different deal too. I called up LucasArts one time because I was playing Star Wars games in my shop. I had a retail shop for a while, and they weren't nice about it. They're kind of taught to be ridiculous and rude and nasty, but they said, I don't care what you do in there. That's so, yeah, I've got that all covered as far as legality, but yeah, no, you can't, you're not going to see Superman or Wonder Woman and all those things in there. So,
well, I just use Superman as an emblem of an invulnerable kind of character.
Understand.
So, yeah.
Understand. Yeah. But if I were to
have to have, if you're going to have a game, I mean, there has to be, what's the point? If you're, you could have a tennis ball versus brick wall game too. It would be just as exciting. You know what I mean?
Right. But there's a way to custom, and that's not coming right away. Even if I get past the needle felted book cover, whatever, that'll come next. But there's a second, the first add-on that I have planned is customized magic. And that also includes customized powers for superheroes that kind of go into the system. So you can use those to create your own superheroes. But yeah, they're not going to be Superman.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, you'd have to put in some guidelines in the book for like, if you're creating your own, some things to keep in mind, but people can do what they want, obviously with it, but it just stands to reason that you wouldn't be able to have something completely invulnerable and have a game that's,
Right. So exactly. There'll be some limitations, stuff like that. So yeah,
except the zombie killer snowman. That's an exception.
Right. Because we can put that in there. But anything else you can think of? I know it's just talk. Michael makes a good point. You don't have anything in your hand to show anybody. Fair enough. We'll get this all down pat as far as the shows. We still kind of sometimes get a little haphazard in the way we're doing things. We wanted to go through. I wanted to briefly touch on a couple of issues that I'd had as far as talking about nomenclature or terminology, some of the things that had happened. You know, I had somebody, whatever, but we probably shouldn't do that. The thing, what we do is we start these things off with, "Hey, how you doing?" We just want to start with some small talk, but instead that ends up being 20 minutes
sometimes
worth
we
of
wade in a little deeper than what. But I mean, Michael's got a good question. Is there a rule set as to how they function and the portals? I'm assuming is what you're referring to in that case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is. Yeah, you'll get some explanation as to how they work when you step through them and what to do. But the game is really set up to be such that there won't be a big need for a lot of transition if you do step through one, because it's all the same set of rules. There's no major changes. Like I say, of course, if you weren't using guns before and now you are, you'll be using, rules on guns that you weren't before. But there isn't a whole new set of rules on guns because it's, 20th century versus 19th century guns or anything like that. Anything that you shoot that flies a bullet, bolt, or arrow at somebody is all the same thing. You count the range, you get a percentile chance to hit, and that also doubles in function for the damage that's done to the target.
A lot of the rules being weapon specific, it explains itself once you get to where, this particular weapon has this kind of range, this kind of impact, this kind of effect as far as damage and that kind of thing. So you're going to have a change in that when you change weapons, but the basic principles and physics of it all are the same, obviously, for one versus the other. But then you get to lasers and things like that, they behave quite differently.
What's that? Run that by me again?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So when it comes to weapons, like you said, they're all the same basic physics because you're throwing it's a bolt or a bullet or a arrow that's flying through the air. So the same physics apply to each one, but they're going to have different levels of range, impact, etc. when they hit something.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
but lasers are going to behave completely different. Yeah.
No,
and the gravity specific range modifier, if you're going to like Mars or something, absolutely, because the gravitational pull on Mars is different than on Earth. The range would be affected by a different gravitational. Oh, sorry. Michael says now you need to add a gravity specific range adjustment modifier, though. You brought it up, and it's true. If you go to Mars with your crossbow and you fire it, it's going to travel farther because gravitation on Mars is what, 1/3 of Earth?
Oh, yeah, but yes, that's true. What about, but you brought in lasers.
Well, lasers would be, that's where I'm saying, then you're out of the range of projectiles into something that's a light-based weapon, which is going to behave differently. So the rules are not the same for projectile-based gun, crossbow, etc.
Oh, you motherfuckers think you're so okay. I get it.
What? Am I wrong?
You think that's cute? Okay. Well, here's the thing.
What?
So this week,
are you mocking me? That was mockery.
No, I see what you're doing here, though. But here's the thing. So this leads me into another little talk I want to get into. There, you'll get the people when I brought up realism before. Let's hit realism again from a different direction about this.
Lasers aren't real.
Well, hold on. You'll get into these people will say, "Why are you talking about realism in a imaginary world? It's not real because it's imaginary." But every world, BattleTech, Star Trek, Star Wars, DC, Marvel, Buffy, whatever, has an internal reality to it. If you sit down and get on the old social medias and look at people talking about some of the shows that Disney's put out for Star Wars and some of the lightsaber combat of those shows, you'll see, or the movies, you'll hear people saying that's not canonically correct. You can't do that. That force power isn't right. That lightsaber exchange isn't right. They're not wrong. You can have realism within a fantasy or sci-fi world. It's internal consistency. So, yeah, you're going to have ranges on laser type weapons, blasters, and stuff like that in Star Wars because internally there's ranges to those things. Now, if you want to get into, and I do this in one of the sub chapters of the system, which is called Armageddon's Edge, and that's modern warfare. And in that one, you'll have real lasers, and yes, real lasers that are weapons like the anti-missile systems and stuff like that are coming online and being tested, and sometimes they'll behave as far as range and intensity and attenuation, stuff like that, like they're behaving right now. But which may be different than Han Solo's blaster or a phaser from the Federation. Yep. But that's all about range and that's all about damage. It isn't about accuracy. When it comes to accuracy, everything stays the same. You're still measuring range and coming up with a percentile to hit based on that range. And then that percentile will also double for damage, but that damage may be different across these different systems. And that just is a matter of using whatever chart is provided with it. So you'll get a CRT that looks like every other CRT and every other module. The numbers inside the different cells of that CRT may be different because you're playing, Star Trek versus, 1848 six shooters or something like that. See how that works?
Right. Yeah, and it makes sense. And I did want to respond to Michael. Yes, lasers are real. I was being facetious.
That's right.
Lasers are absolutely real.
Mm-hmm. So that's how it works. It's really, and that's how I keep everything from having to change and you having to learn things. How can I play Panzer Blitz and AD&D using the same stuff? Because I've got this means of handling all sorts of missile fire the same way, but the effects thereof are changed in the chart, but the configuration of the chart doesn't, as far as accuracy and all that other stuff. So, I admit that having something to put on screen to show this would be helpful. But this is one of these things where the conversation meanders, and we don't like to say goodbye. We like to talk, so we take questions and all that. So, but we'll do better. I don't know what to say, but
yes, one day we will overcome our ADHD and do better.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So one of the other things we're going to start doing.
Chicken.
Right. One of the things we're going to start doing better to minimize some of our flightiness is we are going to have some people coming on next Wednesday. There's a fella I shouldn't say. You know what? I keep doing that, and it gets me in trouble. I don't know that it's a fella. I don't know that it's a Sheila. I don't know. But the individual.
When did you become Australian? What happened?
I don't. The individual is coming on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Tiny D10 system. We're going to have a chat, talk about how they do things. They've got this system called Tiny D10 coming out. We've got a couple of other potentials lined up. One we had potential lined up told me to go ahead and block him because he didn't like the way I phrased something, unfortunately. So I guess we won't be having Griffith Morgan on, although at one point he did talk about having a conversation. So, but we'll get other folks to come on. There's another author that we were talking about having, so we'll start doing some of that as well, some of these interviews, and hopefully we'll be a little bit be interesting as well. But I did want to talk about this because I was starting to get some traction on the Twitters.
Oh, the Twitter. You know they changed the name of that, right?
Twitters. But it would be nice to have a demonstration. Would be nice to have some people participate in playing some of these games. One of the things that we'd like to do to show this system off is to play in a world that we've been working on. We're almost done with, and
doing some
doing some adventuring in there would be a great way to display it, and we'd love to have some people volunteer to participate in that demonstration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting world. I'm excited to play in that one.
So here's what happened with the Griff thing. I'll tell you, because it's not even that big of a deal. He didn't block me, but he told me to block him. And I said, okay, I want to play that game. So I did, but not entirely, but I did for the evening because I thought it's a shitty way to reply. I said to him, I watched only part of it. It was, people know he can get a little bit saucy over nothing. And the thing is awesome. All I said to him was, yeah, that's not the right word, but whatever. All I said was, I watched part of his new thing, and I says, and I don't think he liked the word take umbrage with, but it's going to be okay. It really ain't that big of a deal. But I guess that kind of made him feel like I was taking him to task too much or something. I'm just assuming he didn't really say anything. I said, I take umbrage with the idea that the phraseology that you're doing this for fun infers that there's people out there that aren't doing it for fun or don't have fun playing or something like that. And I says, just in general, I kind of gotten sensitive to people who will make a subjective opinion as some sort of objective fact, because you're kind of kicking sand on everybody else's shoes by saying it that way. And he goes, well, you can block me. So I did.
Okay.
That's all he said back. And I thought, you could have at least addressed it in some way. So
this sounds like a don't wear white after Labor Day argument to me. But
yeah, it was sometimes he gets overly, whatever the deal is. I haven't had a problem with him or anything like that, really, but I don't think it's the first time he's replied with that. So I just thought, okay. So that's what I got with it. I didn't even watch the whole thing. I just watched that part, and I thought people need to stop doing this because it makes people look at your, like the other day, like here's another one. Now this isn't about anybody's product. It's about D&D. So really it doesn't matter, AD&D, but it's the same type of thing. So they said, this table does not produce interesting NPCs. Says you. Maybe I find them intensely interesting. Maybe I'm obsessed with them because they're so effing interesting. The point is that what you said is you've objectively you've worded it in such a way that you're telling everybody that table doesn't work and that it produces bad. But it doesn't produce bad. It produces something you don't like, and that's fine. You don't have to like. You don't have to find interesting. But don't say that it does produce interesting. Say that, and I hate language police in general, but this is significant, is to say, I don't find what it produces interesting. Because
you're getting a little language police, but in your defense, because I can see where you're coming from, is basically there used to be the reason I compared it to the white after Labor Day thing is because that's what happened with fashion. There were all these rules that, oh, you can't wear that with that, or you can't wear this at this time, or you can't do that's not proper fashion. And there's always people who come about saying they're experts on it, but really, when you get right down to it, it's one of the most subjective things you can think about. You know,
Yeah,
because
yeah. Go ahead.
because it is really a matter of taste, and there are always people who will style themselves as the experts on all things tasteful, whether you're talking literal taste, and there are taste testers that go to restaurants and go, this place is total junk, it's awful, but yet you'll see people lining up outside. I mean, heck, who's going to review McDonald's from Michelin? No one. But how many millions have been sold? So, there's somebody's liking it or
Yeah.
loving it. I don't know.
Yeah, right. It doesn't have, I mean, no, and it doesn't have to be it doesn't make it better doing it all the time. I'm just saying what this was is it was a video that was supposed to be welcoming the newcomer. And in its own way, inadvertent as it may have been, all I'm saying is that it was the last in a long string all day of people saying this is bad, as if it was fact, when they were stating their personal opinion. And if you're doing that in a welcome to how to play war games. Now, in war games, anybody who uses a CRT is bad. CRTs suck and nobody knows what they're doing if they're using them. So somebody who's new is, well, okay. So when Mr. Expert says those are, but Mr. Expert is just saying, I don't like them. He's saying it in a way that makes it sound like it's some sort of fact, but all he's doing is expressing his opinion, his objective opinion,
Right.
Chocolate bars taste like crap. I think chocolate bars taste like crap. Number one is making a declarative, objective statement. Number two is stating your personal tastes.
Yeah, I think so, but you can see
Fairly
where
simple.
Michael and James are making the point that it is kind of read into it. That the assumption is, if you're saying that it is your personal opinion, that it's but I get what you're saying, because it does come out more like
right, and you have to, in the context of a welcome sentence, and further, it was, here's what we're doing, as opposed to what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, it sounds like advertising in a way, and I mean that's
really
kind of
what I'm
always.
saying.
It is kind of something that you can take for granted when it comes to.
We're the ones having fun. Those fuddy-duddies are playing to be some unfun stick in the muds. What? Who the hell is playing games not to have fun?
Yeah.
I had a buddy that would do that all the time. He goes,
a cathode ray table and a combat readiness tube. Yes.
It's just
I love
I had a
that.
guy who would do that too. I was playing with a guy and he didn't like the rules I was playing with. So he kept saying like this. He goes, these games are meant to be fun. And he would say it with this extreme emphasis on the word fun. And I'm like, Jack, I've been playing these games for a long time and I've never this game has always been fun to me. Clearly it wasn't to him, but he got real irritated. Like, you're not here to have fun. I brought the game to play because playing games are fun. Well, why the hell else would I bring it? So when you watch the video and you see the statement that was made, it really does kind of come off as, we're the fun guys, those other guys suck. Well, that's not being an ambassador. That's just selling your brand over everybody else's. And that's what I brought up to him. And instead of going, well, thinking about it, he just gave me the bird. And so, okay, I got the bird. I don't care. Whatever.
Well, yeah. I'm going to have dreams about cathode ray tables and combat readiness tubes that coming after me.
Well, right. And everybody gets, I understand the idea with acronyms too. I get how they can be obnoxious, but
oh God, I hate them.
The thing is, guy who made a advanced squad leader, somebody, oh, you know, that damn game with the, he goes, here's the thing. The game has, it's about this. This requires this kind of description. This kind of description requires acronym. Otherwise, we miss our price point objective. We have to keep this thing under a particular sales price. And if we write out every phrase throughout these rules, the rules thicken even more than they already are. And now
every time you say ASL for Advanced Squad Leader, I think American Sign Language.
Yeah, you want to see,
there's that.
See the signs. Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, but he makes a good point. We just didn't. We had a budget and we had to stay within it, and that meant we could only make so many pages. And making so many pages meant we had to, you know, use those acronyms. But yeah, it's become kind of a and this is why this is to go full circle. This is one of the reasons why I went out and said I'm going to make light squad leader. Now, other people have done squad leader stuff where they go, okay, we're going to make it a little less. But what they've done is they've chopped it off at the knees. They've gone, we're going to do these 3 chapters and we're going to take everything else and throw it over. So, and because we're aiming it at people who go, well, I like squad leader, but I'm just getting to the point where that's too much to handle. It ends up being the same, you know, acronym filled rule set, just a little bit smaller. Where I've gone and said, you know, now if you're playing a military themed game with somebody like me, and I don't mean to make this sound elitist or anything, but service members tend to be aware of the acronyms that they had to deal with in the service and might throw them around and stuff like that. But generally, you don't have to learn a bunch of new acronyms that came with ASL in order to play my light version of ASL. Because there was a lot of added, it wasn't just, you know, military acronyms. They were acronyms for, you know, follow on, phasing fire, and all that happy horse manure. So that throws it away, and it boils it down to kind of a role-playing skirmish type of game.
Wait, if there's happy horse manure, is there also really sad horse manure?
Yeah. Yeah, there is.
Okay.
You know the difference?
No, thankfully I do not.
Yeah, okay.
I have never asked any horse manure if it was happy or not. Nor did I ever expect an answer.
Right. No, but this is bad doesn't necessarily mean it's their opinion. If somebody drops a big fart bomb in a closed elevator and I say to my friend, we can't get away from it, this is bad, that's not an opinion. This is bad in of itself as a phrase doesn't always indicate opinion. Saying, in my opinion, or having some sort of...
I did once come across, and I regret that this happened to me, but I will say I did once come across someone from like the 1800s who had written poetry about how much he loved his girlfriend, particularly if he was trapped in an elevator and he was a fart sniffer. Okay. I'm just going to put it out there. And that was his thing. He liked that.
That is subjective.
Yeah. To him,
that's not an opinion. But if people, and English is one of those things where people don't always, you know, not every word.
I think it's one of those things where you could go around in circles. But I did learn that fart sniffing was a thing that some people are into. And I was shocked and horrified by that. And I have never been the same since. And now all of you are also equally damaged by that knowledge. Yeah. Apparently it's a thing some people like. And I can't imagine why. But they do. Or at least one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. 0 sense of smell. Well, that's a different thing entirely.
But again, inferring that you're the ones having fun as opposed to everybody else, because we're looking to have fun doing this. That infers that there's people that aren't. Who the hell's playing these games that aren't looking to have fun? It was just a dig instead of a welcome, and that was kind of my beef with it. So, but he got
Yeah,
all
I can get
about
that
it.
because they, especially if you're starting off saying that the intention is to make everyone feel welcome, and then you're in the midst of that implying that
And
other people.
then other places he's always talking about how silly it is to be these arguments and be welcoming to everybody and all that sort of stuff. But when you fire up the YouTube channel and all of a sudden you got something to sell, all of a sudden now, yeah, well, you know, those guys over there, they're kind of, you know, they're all about being boring and unfun.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a
Yeah,
difference.
James, you're right. I
That
think
was the whole
we
point of me
agree
bringing
on
it
that
up.
one.
Yeah,
That
exactly that.
everybody has different fun. What's
But the
fun
way
for
he was saying was making
Yeah.
it sound like that wasn't the case. That we're the ones having the fun. All these guys are doing it for all sorts of other reasons that are bad or unfun or whatever. By inferring they were specifically looking for it, they were in their own way inferring that other people were doing it for other purposes. It was kind of a dig. But Michael brings up THACO. There are acronyms in other games that are in ASL. You know, THACO is 2-hit armor class 0. That's a fun one. Everybody loves to argue about in D&D.
Is that fun or is that sarcastic fun?
I don't have. It's just well, it's
I can't tell anymore. Is this chocolate or vanilla? And I like both, for the record. Well, actually, I like.
I was just going to say
vanilla.
that THACO is simple math, but that just would start more problems because some people get really worked up when I do that too. But it's just basic math.
Okay.
And then the argument goes that direction. Well, no one's saying it's hard. It's just counterintuitive. And it's like, yeah, well, it's not good because it's black. I don't like it because it's white. These very, it's like, and then you get into ascending, descending, where people are upset because they have to roll low instead of roll high. And what I did today on Twitter is I put that out as it's like that's the first world problem of tabletop gaming is to make an issue out of, well, I'm rolling low. I mean, how much stretching will some people do just to be able to complain? Seems like a little bit much. Michael says, my son is in the military now. I have to stop him at least once a phone call to ask what on ABC 123 is. Yeah.
Sounds reasonable. My dad was in the Navy. That's where I learned to hate acronyms.
Yeah. Yeah, they get to be much, but and that's a lot of that stuff was that way. You weren't seeing color photographs and color artwork in a lot of games because it wasn't that you didn't have color in 1970s. It was that you didn't have money for color in the 1970s if you were making these games. So same now, I don't have money for all that artwork. I can't. Somebody once told me, he says, you should have illustration every third to fifth page of a rule book. What if it's like the loan thing. Hey, I need a business loan. Okay, well, here's all you need. Including the collateral to pay it back, which I understand people want to get their loan paid back. Oh, wait, you want me to have all the money that I need to borrow? Well, if I had it already, I wouldn't be asking you for it. Right? So I can't afford that. I can't afford it. I can't afford that much art. It take the cost of production goes from $20 a book to $150 a book buying art. So hopefully mom can draw a mean dragon.
Can we do some nice dragons too? I mean, not all dragons are mean, right?
Right. Yeah, there's Puff. He seemed like a decent dude, Puff, right?
Yeah, I got to know Puff pretty good in my younger years.
The great selling rule book of all time has not a single right. Man, I had a lot of those. on grief. I mean, it had something on the front, but that was it. Then the rest was all those dreaded charts,
Oh, not
and
the charts.
the dreaded charts, and
The Dread Chart Roberts.
you know, and the instructions, and then you went to the table where everything looked awesome. You know, like, I mean, I got it to some. One of the first ones I saw that had a lot of lore with it that I had was that I can remember, that was a commercial. I mean, the local gaming store stuff was commercial. Obviously, they were trying to make money off of it. But like FASA had BattleTech, and that was one of the first ones I remember. That and Rogues Trader that had a lot of lore in the margins of the rule book, and it had a lot of pictures and stuff like that. And it wasn't that I didn't appreciate it. It was kind of neat, but I went through the rules first because I wanted to play the effing game. If I wanted to read a book, I would have bought a novel. So I was of a different mind with that stuff. Some people are absolutely in love with it. I just thought it was a detraction. The whole point was to have interactivity. The whole point was to play it out. If I didn't, to me, I was trying to get away from having to read a book where nothing happened, only in your mind. I wanted to play it out on tables. I wanted to use those cool miniatures that were painted up neat and play a giant, expansive, and encompassing war game, or strategy game or something like that. And we wanted scope. The fantasy is that, or the misunderstanding is that, well, when you were a kid, you had the 10 or 12 hours to play. Wait, what? We didn't. There was a lot of reasons why. Just because I didn't have financial or strong financial, 9-to-5 job or whatever you think, that mom and dad wasn't letting me in the house long enough to pay 10 or 12 hours. The only time we played 10 or 12 hours is when they went out of town and left us to the babysitter that was in the other room, or, well, you're old enough to be alone now. Don't wreck the house. Don't burn it down or whatever. And then all the friends came over and we had the big, the long gaming stuff. But other than that, we were as pressed for time as anybody working a 9-to-5 because they were always hustling us somewhere or the other place. So when I did it, I wanted to be submerged in that shit. So I didn't have time to be reading the stuff in the margins. I did that later when I couldn't play, when I was done with my homework or something like that, and I didn't want to come out of the room and watch stupid TV or something. Then I would read that lore, and it was great. But I'd still be happy with, here's your rule book, read the rules, and take the rest to the table. I don't need all that artwork. Hell with that. Uh-oh, she's gone. I bored her to death.
Oh, no, I'm here. Yeah, no, I like artwork myself to look at, but yeah, when it comes to, I mean, I could get any book of lore and look at pictures of, artwork that's been written over the centuries or drawn over the century of, dragons and elves and all kinds of other things. Really, what makes a game is the game.
So, the tactile and the interaction, and I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, yeah, we have that with a book too, but I've read the book. Lord of the Rings, I read the book. Can I read it more than once? Sure. Have I read it more than once? Sure. But the whole thing was, when Gary started putting, Lord of the Rings games out, hey man, I liked that battle scene. Now I can have my own battle scene. Now I can be in that battle. I can be more immersed than even, and he's a phenomenal writer, I ain't saying, but I can be even more immersed than Tolkien had me through his narratives and his descriptions. And it's not the same show every time. That's another thing. Now it's a show that I can make, and it has an outcome that I don't even know until I get to the end of it. It's a recurring thing. Now it's not just going to Mordor with Frodo. It could be all sorts of other things if I'm playing MERP or something like that. It's
Right.
just, my favorite TV show is canceled and they're not making any more. Now I'm bummed I don't get any more story. But
I
with
was
the
just thinking that
right,
same thing.
right, with the
If you
tabletop,
can keep it
now I get
going
more
yourself,
story.
right?
Right, exactly that. And that isn't done by reading, it's done by playing, in my opinion. So that's why I like
And
that
good.
stuff.
It's the difference between observing what someone else has created and creating yourself.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I never got into the, I mean, like I said, I would go to an art show. I would enjoy that. There's nothing, it's not like I haven't stared at some of this stuff from time to time. The covers of the AD&D hardcovers are phenomenal artwork. They certainly, look cool. There's many of Rosetta painting that I eyed more than once because, I was of an age, but because it's got a lot of boobies in it.
I would have never guessed.
So, but yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm not putting art down. And like I said, my mom is a good artist. I am going to see if she will
Thanks for
draw
hanging
some.
out, Michael.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. I thought you were done with that stuff. I got to get
Hey, 7 episodes. Twin Peaks was great, actually. And I was sad to hear what happened.
Yeah. Got to get
Yeah.
more participants in here. Thanks everybody else who's piped in and joined. I hope if you're still here. Thanks,
Yes.
James, Philip. Thank you.
Yes.
No Tony
Thank you.
tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And please, if you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all the good things. And I think I might have to actually call it a night because I, I yeah, I think it's time for the grandkids to go to bed. So I got to get up and make sure they get there. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Well, we kind of rambled through another one. Well, like I say, we'll keep learning how to rein it into the whatever.
Don't make impossible promises, dear.
Right. Good point. Good point. But we will be on task for Tiny D10, who's coming.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And we're doing that at 7, correct? It's going to be 7 p.m. Wednesday, correct?
7 p.m. Wednesday. You have all the
At 7 Central Time.
Central Time. Do you have all the questions?
Do I have all the questions?
Do you have all the questions?
I have one question. Why am I the one in charge of all the questions?
Shit. We'll have plenty of questions.
I will have questions. Yes.
Yeah, we'll have all the questions. And if you want to ask a question of Tiny Die 10, that is. Here, let's promote just before we split. Let's get that out. So if you have a question, feel free to return and enjoy. But you can also just leave your questions on give them the email address there.
Oh, yes. So you can always reach me anytime that you'd like. If you have questions or comments or suggestions or anything at all, I can be reached at campaigns and conquests, all one word, .magenta@gmail.com.
Is that an ampersand or the word and?
Oh, no, it's the word and. Campaigns and conquests. I will type it in here for everyone. That way it's a little bit easier.
Me
It's in
and
the notes.
the eight fingers on my hands that work. I have two that kind of don't, and they make me look like I'm illiterate when I type because they they got nerve damage. So thank you. I cut and paste that one because I couldn't. My typing is awful. But there you go. So if you got a question, Tiny Die is a minimalist game kit. What I've looked at seems geared towards fantasy, but it says quite plainly that adapting it to any other genre is possible. But it says it's been play test by his or her. I don't want to make any assumptions, offend anybody, but their, if that's more accurate, family for some years. Looks like it would be great for those who are fans of the the super minimalist outlook on gaming. So
I'm looking forward to engaging and asking the questions that you'll be coming up with, right? I'm not dodging. Yeah. I will have some questions too, but I think
we both will. Yeah.
Yes, we both will. But I'm looking forward to it, and I hope to see all of you joining us on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Should be exciting. And of course, we are going to have an interview style, but we are also going to still continue to invite our regular listeners up to, comment, ask your own questions. So, let us know if there's anything you want to ask. We can either ask it for you, or you are free to come up on the mic and ask for yourself if you want to, be heard. So thank you guys again for joining us tonight, and we will see you on Wednesday. So until then, happy gaming.